Happy Monday. How are you doing? It's another day that the Lord has made, and thank you so much for joining. This is the day. We are live on Family TV, also live on Family Radio. My name is Sarah Otieno. Use the WhatsApp number 0786 316 316 and talk to us. SMS line 20316 on Facebook and Twitter at Family Radio 316. Well, today we will be looking at what the Ministry of Education has actually given out as the final calendar for 2021 resumption to our schools. Well, we'll be talking to one Mr. Alvins Onano, who's an educator, sometime later in the show. But for now, we look at some of the stories that are making headline in our country. Now, the Ministry of Education has finally released the 2021 education calendar that will require all learners in primary and secondary schools to report back to school from January 4th. Education Minister Professor George Magoha announced today that the pre-primary 1 and 2, Standard 1 to Standard 3, Standard 5 to 7, and Form 1 to Form 3 students will return to school for their second term in the academic year. This is because their learning was stopped after 2020's first term, shortly after Kenya reported its first case of COVID-19 disease, while the second term will start from January 4th and end on March 19th, alongside a third term for Grade 4, Standard 8 and Form 4 learners who have been in school for some time now.
All schools will reopen fully on the 4th of January 2021. This will apply to PP1 and 2, Grade 1, 2 and 3, Class 5, 6 and 7, and Form 1, 2 and 3 learners. 2, all 4-year-olds will join PP1 in July 2021. Number 3, pre-primary 1 and 2, Grade 1, 2 and 3, Class 5, 6 and 7, and Form 1, 2 and 3 learners will start their second term on the 4th of January 2021 and end on the 19th of March 2021, together with Grade 4 candidates. And together with Grade 4 and the examination classes, which are basically Class 8 and Form 4. Number 4, all learners except Class 8 and Form 4 candidates will proceed for a 7-week holiday to allow for KCPE and KCSE examination administration and marking. Number 5, Grade 4 and incoming Form 1 Class 8 graduates learners will stay at home as other learners complete their third term. Number 6, Grade 4 CBC learners will transition to Grade 5 in July 2021.
Well, the Teacher Service Commission Chief Executive Nancy Macharia has said that teachers are ready to prepare Standard 8 and Form 4 candidates for the national examination. Mrs. Macharia urged teachers aged between 58 and above and those with pre-existing health conditions to work from home.
We are encouraging teachers who are aged 58 and above and those with pre-existing conditions to work from home as much as possible. These teachers can be utilized in offering critical duties such as preparing schemes of service, schemes of work, teaching aids, and marking, amongst others, so that they can keep the teachers who are actively in class with lesser load. When we came here the last time, I did appeal to our teachers who are 58 and above and those who have existing conditions to remain at home. But our teachers said then that the employer wanted to sack them. I want to assure our teachers that the employer is in no business of dismissing teachers, and especially when this has been a presidential directive. We just want you to take care of your health, because as an employer, we want to have you long.
Well, there we have it. Now, all these effects have been made by the COVID-19 pandemic that affected our country from early this year. Later on, we will be talking and actually breaking down on the new education calendar that has been given today by the Ministry of Education. That is coming up later. But now, there is this senior preacher from the Purpose Center Church in Nairobi. His name is Julian, and he admitted to actually exposing his son to COVID-19. Now, over the last 16 days, the pastor has been recovering from the virus at a hospital in Nairobi County, and he revealed, I quote, "While at hospital, my family had to be tested, and I was even more devastated that I had infected my son, who is by God's grace an asymptomatic and has survived." And he went ahead to say, "I was distraught by having endangered my family. As a husband, I felt as though I betrayed my darling wife, and yet I was the champion of always saying that we have to work, because how do we eat if we can't work?" End of quote. Now, this pastor went on to confess that he was one of the most vocal leaders who had discredited the virus, and having once said that COVID-19 was not an African disease. Now, his near-death experience gave him a fresh perspective, and he apologized to having misled millions of his followers. Now, this is just one case study of what is happening because of COVID-19 and the number of people that have been affected with this virus. We have some healthcare workers who've actually suffered COVID. And right now we have this is a preacher who is well known, Pastor Julian, and he says that earlier on, he had actually discredited COVID-19, but because of what happened to him, because of being affected with the virus, he now knows that it is real, and he actually apologizes that he misled his followers, telling them that at some point COVID is not an African disease. Well, this is just a call to action and an eye-opener to all of us. Someone said, until COVID hits home for a person, that is when we will know the seriousness of this disease. Now, this is a preacher and a spiritual leader to most Christians who's actually said that it's real. And he's calling on everyone to actually be vigilant and protect themselves from getting COVID-19. Well, now we have a case study. We all know of this preacher, and now we know that COVID is real. Let us continue taking care of ourselves. And talking about the virus, the number of positive cases in the country has hit 70,804, and this is after the confirmation of 559 new cases in the last 24 hours. The Health CS Mutahi Kagwe said today that the new cases is from a sample size of 3,074, and another 478 patients have recovered. However, another 18 patients have died because of COVID-19.
Today, another 559 people have tested positive, with a sample of 3,074 in the last 24 hours. We have therefore got 70,804 people who have been confirmed positive in our country, which means our cumulative total is now at 793,026 persons. 541 are Kenyans, while 18 are foreigners. 336 are male, while 223 are female. We have also recovered some 478 patients, most of them from home-based care. 337 are from home-based care programs, while 141 have been discharged from the various hospitals. Unfortunately, in addition to the figures I've read, we have also lost some 18 patients to the disease, bringing the fatality rate to our nation to 1,287. And our condolences go to those who are dead. I would like to also state here that even as we do so, we have got a lot to thank God about, because if you look at our fatality rate in Kenya, which still stands at about 1.8%. And when you look at the average fatality rate across the world, it is anywhere above even up to 4% in some countries.
Well, there we have it. And today, maybe you can share with us, how has COVID-19 affected you? We know we have different aspects of life that have been affected because of this pandemic that hit hard on our country, and we are now experiencing the second wave. So just to get an experience that you have gone through, how has COVID-19 affected you? You can share that using the WhatsApp number 0786 316 316, SMS line 20316. But for now, we want to dive into something that is a bit current, and this affects all parents, all students, all pupils, and even the teachers. The new education calendar has been released today by the Education CS Professor George Magoha, and this is after he had a very strong meeting, if I may call it that way, by the education stakeholders. And with me right now, we have an educationist, Alvin Sonano. Hi, Alvins. How are you doing?
Hi, Sarah.
It's good to see you today, and I know this is a major step and a big step for the education sector, you being one of them. Well, I just want you to help us break down what really are the changes that have been made, or rather, what are some of the pointers that have been given to us by the Ministry of Education?
Thank you. Thank you for having me here, Sarah. And I think to start us off, it's a good day. I think there's some clarity that has come out in terms of the education calendar to the students, to the parents, and even to the general stakeholders in the education sector. I think it was high time that we had this highlighted, because people are becoming uncertain when the president on 12, in his address that he mentioned on 12, gave a directive to the Ministry of Education that they had up to a period of 14 days to be able to come out clearly to the public as to how the calendar of education is going to be.
Yes.
Because we must also admit that it had been interrupted for a period of 7 months for the grade 4, class 8 and the form 4 students. And now it has been interrupted for a period of 9 months. If we have to calculate up to January for the students who are yet to join in January. But I think it has become more clear today for the calendar to be out by Professor George Magoha. And I think there's more light right now as to how we are going to move into 2021 and how we are going to, as to how schools are going to carry out their academic activities in 2021.
I like what you're saying, but you know, maybe it's not very clear to some parents or even to students how their second term is going to be. So kindly help us understand, when is it going to start and when is it going to end?
You must also understand that it is second term for the rest of the students who are at home. I presume that is PP1, PP2, grade 1 through grade 3, and class 5, 6, and 7,
yeah.
Form 1 through Form 3. Because we already have grade 4, class 8, and Form 4 students currently undertaking their preparations for the transition in terms of their academic leverage. And the second term, basically, like I've mentioned, is solely meant for those who are at home. Those who are already in school, we will be proceeding to third term.
Yes.
Those who are already in school will be proceeding to third term. I think that is the major part of their preparation for the national exam for the KCPE and KCSE and KCSE candidates. What the minister, or rather the cabinet secretary, mentioned today clearly is that for the rest of the students who are at home are yet to join in January, their term 2 actually begins on 4th of January 2021 and will run for a period of 13 weeks ending on 19th of March the year 2021. And if we have that clear, then it only means that there's going to be a period of 7 weeks where we are going to have KCPE and KCSE being done by the candidate class, Then after that, I think they will resume for another period to just be able to finish up that bit of term one, that bit of term two. I apologize, and then they dive into term three come April, where it will run for a period of 10 weeks, after which they will break before they transition into the next class.
Well, I'm looking at it this way, and if I'm getting you clearly, sorry, that break, the 7-week break where we have all the pupils and students home except the grade 4, the class 8, and the form 4 students, that is when they will be sitting for their national examination.
It is very clear. That is when there will be the sitting of the exam, and the process of marking of the exam will take place within that period of 7 weeks, because they are anticipating that the exam will take a period of 3 weeks, I think 3 weeks, and then the marking process will commence immediately the exam is done with.
And now looking forward to now the third term and the other classes. Well, they will be having their third term from April next year. Now, does this mean that the education calendar is completely changed with these new changes that have been given by the CS, or will we go back to the normal January to December setup that we are used to for quite some time now?
Personally, we should say that the calendar is going to be changed adversely, because of course this is a new normal, and I think we all have to adjust to these new times. But the calendar will be staggered a little bit until the end of 2022. So the start of 2023, I think we'll see things starting to come back to the normal system. Like I'd mentioned in other interviews, the change of a curriculum, or rather the change of an academic calendar, is something that we cannot just sit as stakeholders and just say that we are now discussed and we've said that we have to change the calendar. It takes a whole lot of process for that discussion, or rather for us to initiate that kind of a conversation. But what we have currently, we are just trying to ensure that the students who are currently at home do not further lose on their academic class, but we find a better way in which we can also initiate them into this new normal, so that learning can continue to take place for them, just so we do not have what we clearly can define as an academic vacuum, both in class 8 and in Form 4, and also in Form 1. In Form 1, we may have, if we stagger it further, we may have 2 classes coinciding, or we may have class 8 staying home longer. In Form 4, we will have a reintroduction of the double intake program, which was actually scrapped off by Mr. Matiang'i when he was the cabinet secretary in charge of education. Back then.
Yes. I like where we're going, and clearly you're helping us understand literally the breakdown of this new curriculum that has been given. But I'm looking at the preparedness of the children and the teachers. Well, it has been a period of 7 months, 7 weeks, 7 months actually, and 9 months for those that will be joining in January. Now, do you think our teachers and the pupils and the students that will be reporting back in January are actually ready to take up and pick up where they left?
Both students and teachers alike, I think, if we make it a little bit humorous, they have missed each other. Because teachers have only been dealing with KCPE and KCSE candidates, let alone the grade 4 students who are also supposed to be transitioning to grade 5 in accordance to the CBC curriculum.
Yes.
And I think the students have also missed school, because the students have had a learning process at home, which has been, some of which has been a little bit adverse on them. But to be honest, a little bit, the teachers will have a little bit more work to do when they have to try and reintegrate the students who are at home back to school. At least I've visited a couple of schools, and we know that the Form 4s are fully settled and are geared towards the end game, which is actually doing their KCSE, and the Standard 8 are also preparing for their KCPE. But the Form 1s to 3, the class 5, 6, and 7, PP1, PP2, grades 1 through 3, there's a lot that the teachers have to do to try and reintegrate them back to school, because we find that in as much as the government tried to roll out the community-based learning in a nutshell, which never saw the day of light, and some private institutions have also tried to bring out the online learning program, which may not have catered for the 100% capacity of the students that they have in schools. We also have seen a couple of institutions that have actually shut down.
Yeah.
So teachers really have a lot of work to try and bring these students into that mental state in which we can actually say that there is proper learning that is actually taking place. But I think the teachers, on their part, they are well prepared in terms of the psychosocial support that they are supposed to be offering to the students, and they are really eager to be have all students back at school.
Wow, wow. I like what you're saying. And there's actually Sharon here from Naivasha who is saying, hello, Sarah, I am loving the discussion and how the educationist is breaking down the new calendar. This is good, especially for parents who do not have access to this information and maybe are not learned. So, Alvins, we're doing a great job here. And talking of parents, financially speaking, because of this COVID-19, and it has affected everybody, you know. Some parents have lost their jobs, others have been affected economically. Do you think by that time maybe, or do you think it's a good grace period for parents to actually prepare for the reopening in January?
Thank you. I think by the mention that we got today from the Cabinet Secretary in charge of education, I think parents needed that clarity for them to really plan themselves out. I cannot speak on behalf of all the parents, but they have been affected. Most parents have been affected adversely with this new normal because, like you mentioned, some have lost their jobs, some are actually receiving pay cuts, which cannot sustain them. But we are just hoping that by January, most parents would have actually planned themselves out and prepared themselves well to be able to return the students back to school in time.
And the reason as to why I'm in agreement with that is, you remember when our candidates went back to school, it was just a notice of 1 week. And now we have about a month or so to actually prepare them well. So maybe it's actually good news for the parents this time round. Okay. All right. Now I want to ask you something about our safety. Not necessarily Sisi, mimi na wewe. Oh, you are an educator, so you'll be back to school. So about the safety of our pupils and the teachers, now that they're all going back to school, considering the conditions of our schools, you know, in the last years we've been having children sharing their desks. Basically, a class will have up to 50 pupils or students in one class. Do you think our children and the teachers are going to be safe when we all return back to the classroom?
It is very clear to all learning institutions. I think 3 weeks before the grade 4, class 8, and the Form 4 students reported back to school, the government, through the Ministry of Education, rolled out some safety guidelines that each and every institution had to meet. And I think they had enough time for them to prepare out some of these safety regulations that the government had actually indicated to them, so that when students actually resume, then it is much safer for the students and even the teachers, and not only the teachers also, but even the other staff that are within the learning institutions, for them to be safe from this COVID-19 that we are suffering from right now.
Yeah.
And I think for us to say that schools are safer, we've also seen a couple of schools open and shut down due to a surge in the number of COVID cases amongst the students. And I think that is an eye-opener to the government, that when we reopen these learning institutions, we should have actually put in a lot of resources for the implementation of some of the guidelines that they had indicated that the schools had to meet for them to reopen, or rather expect the rest of the student population back to school. We are just hopeful as educators that by the time the rest of the student population come in, the government and the school, the institutional heads would have actually come up with clear ways in which they can be able to have the students interact in school without those particular interactions that the Ministry of Health do not want or warrant for that. But just the other day, it also plays a cliche because the PS for Education just mentioned the other day that it will also be very expensive for them to provide some of those prerequisite garments for students in school. That is masks, if we break it down to that point. And it brings the burden back to the parents for them to now try to outsource for some of these face masks that are actually right now required in school, and it is mandatory for each and every student to put them on, each and every teacher to have them on, and each and every person who is visiting any learning institution to have those masks on when they're interacting with the student. But we are just hopeful that the government is now going to roll out implementation programs to try and see that those learning institutions that have actually not meet the criterion in accordance to the guidelines that they published 3 weeks before the Form 4s and the rest of the other students actually reported can actually be maintained, and we see a safer ground for students to have their learning activities proceed.
Well. Thank you, Alvis. But before I let you go, you know, this will take a lot of emotional and psychological strength to actually have the learning process back on track and how it used to be. So maybe before we end this discussion, maybe a word of encouragement to the teachers and also to the pupils and the students. And I'm saying the teachers because looking at it logically speaking, they have a tougher role to play when it comes to the reopening of our schools. So maybe just some word of encouragement.
I wish to say to all teachers who are out there that I know these are tough times for most of them, and let's just brace up because we are preparing the next generation leaders. And there is no much things that we can always receive as educators, but let's just trust in God that all will be well, and let's see the next generation transition successfully.
Wow. Asante sana, Alvins. This was a very helpful discussion, and I'm grateful that you could join us today.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that has been Alvins Onano, an educationist, telling us that it's not going to be easy, but we can make it. Mama J is saying it has been tough, but God has held us in his loving arms. Thank you for tuning into the show today. Simon unasema, COVID-19 has seen me losing my job, but I am grateful and I am very convinced that tomorrow is going to be a better day. Well, someone else hapa anasema, my name is Sam. Sam, asante sana for tuning in all the way from Thika. You're saying it's actually my first time to tune into the show today. COVID-19 has really affected me, and I know some of my friends that actually lost their jobs. I lost my sister because of COVID, and when we hear Preacher Kula actually talking about his story, it is good news because people, and especially Christians, need to understand that COVID is real. And as you said, when it hits home, that is when we know that it is there and it is real. So yes, this is just some of the case scenarios of what is happening. And Sam, asante sana for actually sharing, and our condolences goes out to you and everyone who lost a loved one or a family member because of COVID-19. Let's just continue to be vigilant. Well. Now, it is apparent that there is no love between Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko and the NMS Director Mohamed Badi, and by extension, President Uhuru Kenyatta. Now, Governor Mike Sonko, appearing before the Senate Health Committee, accused the NMS of running down the city while being accountable to no one. Sonko has, in the recent past, doubled up blame on the ability of the NMS to deliver, claiming that its watch the city has become dirtier and more accumulated more debts.
Details of running contracts between the Nairobi City County government and the service providers, especially the third security guard manning the Pumwani Maternity Hospital. There are 152 contracts for supplies and provision of services to the health sector at a cost of 801,944,626.06, Mr. Chair. It is marked as Appendix 4, and 49 pending bills totaling to 471,053,764 cents, Mr. Chair. It was submitted marked as Appendix 5. The Nairobi City County government entered into a contract agreement with Atari security guards in 2016, Mr. Chair. Right contract number NCC/CHS/T/175/2016-2017 for the provision of security guard services for county health service facilities, Pumwani Maternity Hospital, Mama Lucy Hospital, Magadi Hospital, and Mutuni Hospitals, Mr. Chair. The contract expired on 31st of December 2017 with an unpaid pending bill of 19.5 million. The contractor has since been offering services without a contract, but the issue is currently being addressed by our legal teams, Mr. Chair. Copies are attached, submitted to the clerk's office. However, it is lazy and escapist for the NMS to lay the blame of Pumwani Maternity Hospital debacle of a mother giving birth outside the gates on Hatari Security Guards Company.
All right, there we have it, the push and pull between the Nairobi County and the NMS. Now moving forward, internally displaced persons in Gusii region who are victims of the 2007-2008 post-election violence have been a consistent thorn in the flesh of the government and are now reprimanding formulators of the Building Bridges initiative for allegedly excluding them in the process. They claim views that they had put forward to the BBI team were ignored, and they therefore find no need to support it unless the changes are made.
Sisi kama wakimbizi na ile kamati tulikuwa na wao hapa Kisii na kwingineko, tunaona kila mahali wanaongea BBI, tukuche pamoja tulete amani. Kwa nini mtuambie BBI itatusaidia watu wote ili hali mkimbizi bado hamjashughulikia? Kwa nini hamkuweka kibengele chao kwa hiyo BBI? Wale waliadhirika wakimbizi kwa ndani mpaka wa leo bado wanalia na ile act ya IDPs Act 2012 haijawahi suluhisha hii mzozo ya wakimbizi.
Sisi wa Kenya wenye ambao tuko chini hatujulikani na hakuna mtu mwenye ambaye ataweza kutusaidia ikiwa kama serikali ya mtakaa chini, kwa sababu nimesikia hiyo, sababu nimesikia mmeenda mikutano kukutana juu ya BBI. BBI ni nini? Imetusaidia na nini? Imetuletea nini kama sisi wa Kenya wa chini wenye ambana hatuna uwezo? Wametusaidia na kitu gani? Lakini tunaomba wakati huu kabla mchande itapitishwa, answer from the ground ndio mwelekeo mbele. Tunaomba serikali tusaidie wakati kama huu tukiwa na shida kubwa. Si hata mnatufungia kila mahali mkikimbia kwa sababu nyinyi mnatakia wakubwa. Mandugu zangu wa Kenya, of course tunataka sheria ifanye kazi, na mbona mfanye sheria hiyo ifanye kazi kutoka chini, kutoka kwa ground? Nyinyi mnaenda kupitishia juu pale yenye ambao mnajisikia.
Inaonekana sisi hatukumbukwi. Yaani watu wengine tuliacha mandugu zetu Rift Valley ndani ya Jai. Tuliona watu wetu wakikatakatwa mbele zetu. Wengine tulikimbia na miguu tukatoroka tukaingia hapa Kisii, Nyamira huko. Lakini hatujawahi kupata msamaria mwema aulize mbona hawa bado wanalia.
Well, there we have it, the effects of the 2007-2008 post-election violence. And how many years down the line? More than 10 years. And as we head over to the next election period, we still have people who are affected with the previous post-election violence, still complaining of how they are not settled back and how they have not picked up the pieces of their lives. Well, this should actually open our eyes when we go to the next electioneering period, that is 2022. Now, have you heard of the Prophet Bushiri? Now, the South African government says that it has initiated the process to secure the extradition and enlightenment Enlightened Christian Gathering church leader Shepherd Bushiri and his wife Mary from Malawi. Bushiri and Mary unlawfully left South Africa for his home country of Malawi, violating their bail conditions, and they were out on a 200,000 rand bail on charges of theft, money laundering and fraud. Police only became aware of the couple's escape after they failed to report to a police station as per their bail conditions on Friday. And Bushiri further broke the court's order when he addressed the public on the same case, and he justified his address citing freedom of expression. And here is Shepherd Bushiri's address on his post-departure to Malawi, claiming that he had left South Africa because his life was under threat.
The government of Malawi on Monday on the following issues. One, I am in Malawi, not running away from any trial in South Africa. If I wanted to run away, I couldn't have come to Malawi, and I couldn't have announced that I'm in Malawi. Running away, you go in a country where you don't tell people where you are. Right now, I'm informing the whole world that I'm in Malawi, and I'm here in Malawi because I'm a citizen of this country. Therefore, I have come to seek for my government intervention over the following issues I'm going through in South Africa. One, that my safety in South Africa is not okay.
Okay, there we have it. Now, for the second time this month, we have some good news when it comes to the COVID-19 vaccine, and a candidate actually this time. Now, Moderna, the US pharmaceutical giant, says that its shot provides strong protection, a dash of hope against the grim backdrop of the coronavirus surge around the world. Moderna said its vaccine appears to be 94.5% effective, and according to the preliminary data from the company's still ongoing study, and the strongest results were a surprise. Scientists have warned for months that any COVID-19 shot may only be given as good as flu vaccine, which are about 50% effective.
It's a really important milestone in the fight against the pandemic because it demonstrates that our vaccine, mRNA-1273, is able to prevent COVID-19 disease, including severe disease in people who've received it. It's really just a milestone, though. We have a lot of work ahead of us. Knowing the vaccine is going to be effective is great news, but we still need to complete the regulatory process, which involves completing the study and generating more data, even some follow-up and safety data. And then, of course, we need to get busy manufacturing. We hope to have about 20 million doses of the vaccine by the end of this year, by the end of the calendar year. And we're looking forward to making about 500 million to 1 billion doses next year. But that is going to be a 24/7 operation.
Well, according to the scientists, this is a vaccine that is 94.5% effective. And this is good news when it comes to COVID-19 and the effect that it has had to not only Kenyans, but across the globe. Well, we're just hopeful and looking forward to having a vaccine that is 100%. And hey, we have lost so many people to COVID, and the effects are so much. Well, this is Angie, and Angie, you're saying, hello, Sarah. I have also been affected by COVID-19, but I must say it was not as strong as the effect that it has had to other people. My condolences goes out to everyone that has lost a loved one to COVID-19. Let us continue being strong. Thank you so much, Angie, for tuning in and for the word of encouragement. And hey, if you are always on the move, if you are on the move when we are having our show, remember that you can always catch us live through the Family Media app. And our application is found on Google Play Store and even on the Apple Store. Just type in the word Family Media and you will see our application, and you can always catch our shows live as you move from one place to another. So yes, Family Media application, that is what we are downloading tonight. Ama namna gani? Thank you so much for tuning in to the show today. My name is Sarah Otieno. I wish you God's favor and blessings. Remember that prayer circle is coming in next after this show. So send in your prayer requests and also your praise reports Good night.
For this and more of our shows, log on to www.familymediaonline.com to enjoy a wide variety of programs from current affairs to testimonials and features, pastoral and inspirational shows, kids entertainment, and so much more. Also stream live on www.familymedia.tv.